let's go on, talking about His good old way. Let's go on, let's go on, talking about the Lord. Feeling so much better, talking about His good old way. Feeling so much better, talking about the Lord. Let's go on, let's go on, let's go on, talking about His good old way. Let's go on, let's go on, talking about the Lord. The devil, he don't like it, talking about His good old way. The devil, he don't like it, talking about the Lord. Let's go on, let's go on, let's go on, talking about His good old way. Let's go on, let's go on, talking about the Lord. Amen. You must feel very good about the Lord because He continues His old way, good old way. That's why in the book of Acts Apostles 10:38, when Jesus came, He continued moving around doing good. It has been His way. His good old way is doing good to mankind, bringing us to understanding of whom He is. Hallelujah, somebody. If you understand Him, your burden will disappear. The thing you call your burden, you will not see it again. Amen. Amen. This evening, God will release His blessing once more upon His children. Amen. The psalmist, Psalm 66, verses 20, say, "Blessed be the Lord, who has not turned away our prayer, nor His mercy from me." He has not turned our prayers upside down. He has not said no to any of our requests. This evening, He's going to visit us once more and strengthen us. Strengthen the inner man. Praise the Lord, somebody. Amen. Shower your blessings upon me. Oh my Jesus, shower your blessings upon me. For I believe in you. Shower your blessings upon me. Oh my Redeemer, shower your blessings upon me. For I believe in you. Shower your blessings upon me. Oh my Redeemer, shower your blessings upon me. For I believe in you. Shower your blessings upon me. Oh my Redeemer, shower your blessings upon me. For I believe in you. Gozie, gozie mo, onye na-eme mma, gozie mo, chekwaba mo, ebe nkwere na gị, gozie, gozie mo, gozie mo, chekwaba mo, ebe nkwere na gị, gozie, gozie mo, onye na-eme mma, gozie mo, chekwaba mo, ebe nkwere na gị, gozie mo, onye na-eme mma, gozie mo, chekwaba mo, ebe nkwere na gị. Shower your blessings upon me. Oh my Redeemer, shower your blessings upon me. For I believe in you. Shower your blessings upon me. Oh my Redeemer, shower your blessings upon me. I believe in you. Shower your blessings upon me. Oh my Redeemer, shower your blessings upon me. I believe in you.
Shower your blessings
upon me. Oh, shower your blessings upon me. I believe in you. Shower your blessings upon me. Oh, my Redeemer, shower your blessings upon me. For I believe in you.
Shower your blessings upon
only believe. You are believer. Shower your blessings upon me. I believe in you. Shower your blessings upon me. Onye na-eme mma gọzie m chekwaba m ebe m kwere na gị gọzie m ebe m kwere na gị
Shower your blessings upon me. Mighty Savior, shower your blessings upon me. I believe in you. Upon me. Mighty Savior, shower your blessings upon me. I believe in you. Shower your blessings upon me. Mighty Savior, shower your blessings upon me. I believe in you. Shower your blessings upon me. Mighty Savior, shower your blessings upon me. I believe in you.
Shower your blessings upon me. My Redeemer, shower your blessings upon me. I believe in you.
Shower your blessings upon me. Mighty Savior, shower your blessings upon me. I believe in you.
Shower your blessings upon me. Oh, my Redeemer, shower your blessings upon me. I believe in you.
Shower your blessings upon me.
Glory.
Mighty Savior, shower your blessings upon me. I believe in you.
Shower your blessings.
Shower your blessings upon me. Oh, shower your blessings upon me. I believe in you. Shower your blessings upon me. Mighty Savior, shower your blessings upon me. I believe in you. Shower your blessings upon me. Mighty Jesus, shower your blessings upon me. I believe in you.
Do you believe it? Thank you, Lord. Glory to your name.
Shower your blessings upon me. Mighty Jesus, shower your blessings upon me. I believe in you.
Shower your blessings upon me. My Redeemer, shower your blessings upon me. I believe in you.
Shower your blessings upon me. Mighty Savior, shower your blessings upon me. I believe in you.
Shower your blessings upon me. Shower your blessings upon me. I believe in you.
Shower your blessings upon me.
Glory, Lord.
Mighty Savior, shower your blessings upon me. I believe in you.
Shower your blessings upon me. Oh, shower your blessings upon me. I believe in you.
Shower your blessings upon me. Mighty Jesus, shower your blessings upon me. I believe in you.
Yes, Lord. Hallelujah.
Shower your blessings upon me. Mighty Jesus, shower your blessings upon me. I believe in you. Shower your blessings upon me. Mighty Jesus, shower your blessings upon me. I believe in you.
Hallelujah. Just a wonderful song. Amen. God bless you, Brother Ike. Amen. Let's bow our heads in prayers. I'd like us to give thanks to God this evening for gathering us in His holy presence. Let us thank Him for his goodness and his favor, and for the word that we are going to receive tonight. The reason why we are gathered here is for the word of God. Amen. We thank the Lord for those that are coming on the way. We thank the Lord for those that are here already and what he has in store for us. The word of the Lord is a lamp to our feet and a light to our path. Let us appreciate him, knowing that the thought of God for us is a thought of peace and for good. Heavenly Father, we thank you. We give you all praise for tonight. We know that your presence is here to bless us. Lord, we humble ourselves and worship you. Accept our persons, O God, in the name of Jesus Christ. We want to see your goodness flourish in our lives. We want to see your favor, O God. Thank you, merciful Father. Oh, merciful Father, we thank you. Let's ask the Lord tonight, if there be anything that will cause an hindrance in my life, in your life, Lord, remove it away from us. Grant the grace. Lord, we want to have that sweet fellowship. Take away anything, oh God, anything that is standing between us and yourself. Holy Father, we want to see your power. Therefore, every self, every weight, every sin, Lord, we bring under the blood this hour in the name of Jesus. Let's pray. Thank you, Father, Lord. You say if anyone come unto you, you will not in any wise cast out. You will no wise cast out such a one. Lord, grant us this peace. In the name of Jesus, we want to see your power move in our lives. Oh, Father. Thank you, Lord Jesus. Thank you, Father, Lord. Thank you, Father. Glory to your name. We give you glory, Lord, as we honor you. We give you glory, Lord, as we honor you. You are wonderful. You are worthy, oh Lord. Glory, Lord, as we honor you. We give you glory, Lord, as we honor you. Lord, you are wonderful. Lord, you are worthy, oh. Only you, Lord. You are wonderful. Yes, Lord. You are worthy, oh Lord. We give you glory, Lord, as we honor you. We give you glory, Lord, as we honor you. For you are wonderful. Lord, you are worthy, oh Lord. You are wonderful. You are worthy, oh Lord. For you praise. You are wonderful and you are worthy. To you be all the glory, all the honor. We bless your holy name. Thank you, Father, for this time. In Jesus' mighty name, we have prayed. Amen. Let's put our hands for the Lord Jesus. May we seated. Just to let us know that by the grace of God, all our brethren that traveled yesterday, the 5 of them have arrived safely to their destinations. Amen. And we are grateful to God for them. Praise the Lord. It was not very easy, but the Lord saw us through in everything. You know, the most important thing was security. Where you have people of different colors at the time, more than 3. So, I was always trying to drive them myself. Amen. To make sure that we use the route that the Lord ministers to me. Amen. We had no private outing. Today, myself and Pastor Tui, we drove to Victoria Island. Being the public holiday and being that he went to see the dentist today, so when we finished, I took the opportunity to drive him around the island from 3rd Mainland Bridge, coming back to the 1st Mainland Bridge, and we came back to Oshodi. So it was a good time. Amen. Praise the Lord. Hallelujah. So we thank the Lord for that, and also for all of our corporations as Christians. Amen. Most of these people are, like you heard from Brother Pierre, in Lebanon, they have folded their bags. They are only waiting for the coming of the Lord. Amen. And Sister Bria has done the same thing. She folded all her things, put them aside, went there to join them. Be closer. Amen. There is nothing to live for except for Christ. Amen. Praise the Lord. And may the Lord bless them. Because they are really in the battlefront. Amen. They are really in the battlefront. May the Lord bless them in the name of Jesus Christ. So, we'll just take 1 or 2 songs and we'll bring the preacher tonight. We had a wonderful time at Egbeda yesterday, and he will still be there in Egbeda tomorrow. Some of us who are living close by in Egbeda, we didn't see you. It's not fair like that. Amen. The preacher spent almost 2 million naira to come here to preach, and nobody will be there. That's too bad. Amen. Some of you living in Egbeda, supposed to come for the meeting and be a blessing. Praise the Lord. Hallelujah. So we thank the Lord for that. I also want to say that I've received so many questions online, which I've replied to the people that I'm going to answer soon. Please, let me say this on air, that just give me this week. Amen. We will answer your questions biblically. I'm talking to those who are following us on YouTube. Amen. And Praise the Lord. I don't know whether I should say this, but let me say it anyhow. It is not wrong to have a baptismal pool. Amen. Many people think it's something else. Praise the Lord. Why do they have special water in the church? It's not special water. Amen. It's for the purpose of baptism. And it's always dried until we want to have some people to baptize. We pump the water. If we had enough space, we would not even put it there. But even to that, it does not even matter. Amen. So may the Lord bless us. Amen. So all those questions, we will answer them. And I also want to say this. Some comments were also made concerning testimonies. Amen. But that one is correct. I'm saying it online openly because the messages came openly. Please, those of us vet testimonies before you bring them forward. There are some testimonies that are no testimonies. Please, I received those messages 3, and I'm ashamed of it. That's why I'm saying it openly here, so as to clear myself. Amen. Praise the Lord. People want to be edified. $229, fairest of all the earth beside. That man of Calvary. Hallelujah. Fairest of all the earth beside, chiefest of all unto thy bride, fullness divine in thee I see, wonderful man of Calvary, that man of Calvary has won my heart for me. He died to set me free. Blessed man of Calvary. Hallelujah. Granting the sinner life and peace. Granting the captive sweet release, shedding his blood to make us free. Merciful man of Calvary, that man of Calvary has won my heart for me. He died to set me free. Blessed man of Calvary. Giving the gift obtained for men, pouring out love beyond our ken, giving us spotless purity, bountiful man of Calvary, that man of Calvary has won my heart for me, and died to set me free. Blessed man of Calvary.
comfort of my earthly way. Jesus, I'll be the some sweet day. Center of glory, I'll see. Wonderful man of Calvary.
Hallelujah.
That man of Calvary.
Only
has won my heart for me, and died to set me free.
blessed man
Blessed man of Calvary.
That man of Calvary, one more time.
Oh, that man of Calvary has won my heart for me, and died to set me free. Blessed man of Calvary.
The Comforter has come. What number is that? 116 is not the Comforter has come. The Comforter has come. The Comforter has come. Three, 2, 3, 5. Oh, spread the tidings round. Wherever man is found, wherever human hearts and human woes abound, let every Christian tongue proclaim the joyful sound. The Comforter has come. The Comforter has come. The Comforter has come, the Holy Ghost of heaven, the Father's promise given. Oh, spread the tidings round, wherever man is found, the Comforter has come. The long night is past.
The morning breaks at last,
And hush the dreadful war
and fury
of the blast.
as o'er the golden hills.
The day advances fast. The Comforter has come.
The Comforter has come.
Oh,
The Comforter has come. The Holy Ghost from heaven, the Father's promise given. Oh, spread the tidings round, wherever man is found. The Comforter has come. Lord, the great King of Kings, with healing in his wings, to every captive soul, a full deliverance bring, and through the vacant cell, that song of triumphs ring, the comforter has come.
The next stanza.
Oh, boundless love's divine, how shall this tongue of mine to wandering mortals tell the matchless grace divine, that I, a child of hell, surely His image shine, the comforter has come.
The comforter has come.
The comforter has come. The comforter has come. The Holy Ghost from heaven, the Father's promise given. Oh, spread the tidings round, wherever man is found. The comforter has come.
Thank you, Lord. Send the comforter.
Sing till the echoes fly above the vaulted sky, and all the saints above to all below reply in strains of endless love, the song that never died, the comforter has come. The comforter has come. The comforter has come. The Holy Ghost from heaven, the Father's promise given. Oh, spread the tidings round, wherever man is found. The comforter has come.
Let's put hands to the Lord Jesus. Hallelujah. Wherever man is found, tell them that the comforter has come. And if the comforter has come, then there's no need for man to roam. Amen. They should find their resting place. Praise the Lord. I'd like us to take this chorus and Draki from Fiji. Amen. Praise the Lord. There's a Fiji song that we learned the other time. It is no longer I that liveth, but Christ that liveth in me. I think it was written down somewhere. So we can sing it in English. No. Don't play it like that. Play it sharp. It is no longer I that liveth, but Christ that liveth in me. It is no longer I that liveth, but Christ that liveth in me. He lives, He lives. Jesus is alive in me. It is no longer I that liveth, but Christ that liveth in me. And you hear what I'm doing? Play as you see my hand. It is no longer I that liveth. I'm talking to the drummer. But Christ that liveth in me. It is
No longer I that liveth, but Christ that liveth in me.
fast about it. Come on.
He liveth, He liveth. Jesus is alive in me.
Yes.
It is no longer I that liveth, but Christ that liveth in me.
It is no
longer I that liveth, but Christ that liveth in me. It is no longer I that liveth, but Christ that liveth in me.
Amen.
He liveth, He liveth. Jesus is alive in me. It is no longer I that liveth, but Christ that liveth in me. He lives, He lives.
Oh,
Jesus is alive in me. It is no longer I that liveth, but Christ that liveth in me.
Chambula. Chambula.
Sabula,
Oh,
Nico Sabula, Vega,
Sasenga di koya
Sabula,
Karisito Sambula.
Bula Vea.
He lives. He lives. He lives. Oh,
Jesus is alive in me.
He's
No longer I that liveth, but Christ who liveth in me.
Hallelujah.
Amen.
Heavenly Father, we praise you and worship you tonight. In spirit and truth, as we come together, sitting together in heavenly places in Christ. Just bless us tonight as we come, Father, to fellowship, to partake of the holy things of God, the bread and the water of life. Nourish our soul as we come here tonight, so we may receive our portion as you speak to us. Bless the pastor and also the elders and the deacons and the congregation that are here in Nigeria, those who are watching live, even from Fiji this evening. Bless them too, Father, as we all come together because of the time that we are living in, as we continue to get ready for that glorious time. In the trumpet of God, in the twinkle of an eye, we'll be changed from corruption to incorruption, from mortality to immortality, and we will be with the Lord. Thank you once again for your grace and mercy tonight. We love you, Father. We praise and worship you. We give you the glory, the honor. In Jesus' wonderful name we pray. Amen. Let us remain standing. We just read the word of God. In the book of Ecclesiastes, chapter 3. Ecclesiastes, chapter 3. Ecclesiastes, chapter 3. Verse 1, verse 2, to everything there is a season and a time to every purpose under the heaven. Time to be born and a time to die. A time to plant and a time to pluck up that which is planted. Amen. May God bless the reading of His word. Let us take our seat. Amen. We thank the Lord for His grace and mercy that we can be here tonight together in the presence of the Lord. We thank God for you, the believers or the body of Christ in Nigeria, from Brother Nice, Pastor Nice, and the pastors that are here, and the elders and the deacons and everyone of you, that we can be here together tonight in the name of the Lord. Amen.
every day I talk back home to Fiji. They send their greetings every time, the brothers and the sisters. So I'm conveying to you their greetings from home. They love you. They watch this live screening of YouTube every time. Amen. So even right now, it's about 6 a.m. 6 a.m. in the morning in Fiji. Some of them will be watching. Amen. That's the goodness of the Lord. To God to use even technology to help us, to facilitate our preparation in the coming of the Lord. Amen. The title of my subject tonight is The Plan and the Purpose of God. The plan and the purpose of God. Amen. I was in Brother Godswill Church last night. I hope you understand my English. I have a lot of tooth missing. I came all the way from Fiji to come and fix it here. I thank Sister Nice for that. So sometimes it's very hard for me to speak. But anyway, as long as you understand what God is going to say or impart to you in whatever way, when we come to the service, God is going to speak to us in one way. He's going to give us a portion to take it back. Amen. So, we know this Bible. We have read it, all of us. It's only 66 books, but it's so deep in God. Every day we read even the same thing sometimes. So, the Word of God should not be common to you. Because God is not a familiar spirit. Don't be familiar to God. Because every time God will speak, the same thing you are reading, God will sign or inspire something for you to receive or enlighten you more. So if you say, I've heard this thing already, then something is wrong with you. You have an attitude problem in God. You should not say that at any point in time. Brother Nice is a preacher. I'm a pastor since 1998. I've been a pastor. I preach this thing from left to right. So we hear the same thing sometimes. But do not try to be familiar with God in the wrong way. Because in the audience of God, some are fast learner. Some are slow. So we should not be selfish and greedy. Because God is trying to bring us to the same level. To the unity of the faith. Amen. Do you understand? Even now, Brother Nice came for 1 month. It's a record in Fiji to preach around for 1 month. It's never happened. Even when I've been pastoring, it's never happened. When Brother Gen comes, only Brother Gen comes to Fiji. 6 times he came. It's only in 1 week or 1.5 he will preach. Only Brother James came from Zimbabwe because Brother Nice was not available in 2016. I want to invite him, but Brother Gen said he's busy fighting fighting the bells, fighting the enemies. So that's why I invited Brother James Averemu, if I'm correct in his name. They had to come. So he came. So far, I mean in the truth, in the present truth. Only these 3 years come. Maybe Fiji is a very remote. And not many people know Fiji. You look in a world map, it's very hard to locate it, Fiji. Even I know that when I invited Brother Nisa, he asked you to locate Fiji. And he said, Fiji is at the end of the world. No, that's not correct. If you don't know something, you must know tonight. that Fiji in every day is the first day in the world. If you understand geography, it's the first day in the world every day. Why? Because of the 180-degree meridian longitude line from the North Pole to the South Pole is crossing Fiji. So the world decided to start the time there. So don't undermine Fiji. Fiji is big too. When Brother Gan came in 2011 to we have a convention, he was preaching. And he said, the rapture is going to take place universally in a period of 24 hours. It's going to happen in the morning. Then he asked us, I'm asking you, church, where is going to start the rapture? I told him, I'm the pastor, I'm sitting before him. I told him, Brother Gan, Fiji. What? Fiji. Why you are saying Fiji, Mr. Twee? Because of the time started here. And he said, no, it will start in Israel. Hallelujah. Yeah, no, because you asked. That's why I'm answering. That's my version, my opinion. Because of the time start with Fiji. Amen. But God knows where Fiji is located. Yes, never mind you are a big country, Africa. But God also knows where Fiji is located. Because it was God who created this planet Earth. Hallelujah. Amen. I'm very thankful for the Lord to be here. You know, I'm not yet to come and preach big things or doctrine because Brother Nice has preached it to you. God has called him to play the leading role too in the ministry of God today. And we are thankful for the calling of God in his servant, Brother Nice, and Brother Gan, and some more preachers around the world today. That this is the work of God or the calling of God. We cannot deny. We cannot go past. Because the Bible said, if you come away from the ways of God or the choosing of God, you will remain in the congregation of dead people. Amen. Some people have been baptized recently. So the understanding from them to the people who've been here for 20 years is a different level. But God must raise them up very fast, as soon as possible. Because we must all come to the unity of the faith before the rapture will take place. That's why we have to have the balance in the church. We have to have the understanding to know who's sitting here. When Brother Nice came and preached to us, he preached in the level he's preaching. Talking about before the foundation of the world, the evil that came from God and so forth. 98 people came to the Lord. We baptized 98 people in 1 month. All these people are young, some are students. Some are 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 years old. And some came from outside, Assembly of God, Seventh Adventists and Methodists. Some came from the world. So the understanding is totally different. So for me as a pastor, it's not easy. Because I must go back and tell them what is Malachi chapter 4. Verse 5 and 6. Because when you talk to the Jew, Malachi 4, they said, that's not for you. That's for us. Because of those prophets are prophets that belongs to Israel. But we know Malachi 4, we come in because of one word, the heart. Retaining the hearts of the children to their fathers. Because of that, because in the heart, God is dealing with your heart. That's where God is going to put the word of God. Hallelujah. Amen. That's why we can claim the scripture. The Jew will never allow you to claim it. Because he said that that's our property, he's talking to us. Amen. So me, I'm not, it's not easy to be here. Because I'm leaving behind hundreds of people. The believers in Fiji. After Brother Nice, I keep on baptizing believers. They are just waiting for me to come back fast. I said, I'm going to come back. Amen. Because we are here not by chance. We are here not by accident. The believers from Lebanon and Sister Grady, they have left. We came here because God has brought us together for a reason, for a purpose. That's why Solomon is writing. He said, there's a time, there's a season, and a purpose for everything under heaven. Even he's saying there's a time to be born, a time to die. There's a time for everything. And this is the time. Nobody believes, nobody knows we're going to all come together in this moment of time. But God's word will never fail. Amen. Brother Pierre said, I don't want to come because he was having a leg problem. He was in pain. That's why he missed the convention. But he came. I didn't want to come too. I told your pastor. We were talking one night. I think I cannot come. But later on I was visiting another island and visiting the new believers. Then somehow things happened. And I said, Brother Nice, I'm coming. That's why I'm here. So we are here together because God has brought us together in one way or another. If a Brother Pierre or Brother JP or Sister Great or even Sister Bree, they will stand here, they will say something. They will trigger something in somebody's life. That mine is only a testimony. God doesn't do anything by just a chance. He's doing something. Hallelujah. If I'm going to stand here and testify, I have a lot of testimony. They will do something to some people. They will bring somebody up. Amen. Yeah. I was in Godsfield, Brother Godsfield Church. There's only a few people there. So what? It doesn't matter. Because not many people will come to the Lord in this time. Only few. Many are called, few are chosen. We are not looking for a big number. We are looking for people that love the Lord with all their hearts. People that can stand for the truth. Not a hypocrite, not a compromiser. Yes. That's what God is looking for. He's looking for somebody like Abraham that can take God and is what God is saying. That can believe what God said regardless of the situation. He said can believe it. Never mind what the world is doing. Never mind it's going to be rejected by society, the father, mother. It doesn't matter. Hallelujah. When I look at the church here, you are like the episode church. Because you've been taught the doctrines. You are not according to the church. Like some church in the world, in the message of the hour. They are carnal. They are fleshly. They are fighting. Because of the teaching. Because Paul taught. He was the pastor for 3 years in Ephesus. He taught them day and night. That's why they know what is adoption. They know that we are chosen before the foundation of the world. They know the mystery of the will of God. The good pleasure of His will. They know. That's why they are a mature church. That's why I don't have much to say to you. Amen. But I can say one thing that will trigger something in your life. To help our believers or whoever is sitting here to do something in his or her life as we come together. That's how God operates in the body of Christ. He supplies. Every joint is supplying something. Whether it's at the head or the body, there's a purpose, there's a function. There's an administration and operation of the Spirit in somebody. That's why we are watching. That's why we look after one another. We see one another because of that somebody can give you something. Never mind your pastor and elder. God can still correct you from a little believer in the church. Because sometimes we are so high-minded. We forget that we are still a human being, that we make mistakes all the time. That's why God has to put a thorn of the flesh in the life of Paul. Not to heal the eye problem. Because of the burdens of the revelation. He was a brother from Dr. Gamel, the greatest doctor of theology. He can be so puffed up, but God must sustain him and put him down all the time. That's why God never healed Paul. There was a thorn in the flesh to always push him down. Everybody got a thorn in the flesh. Because otherwise you're going to puff up. When you go up, God will push you down. Hallelujah. Job, the Bible said Job was perfect and righteous in his day. He got everything. He got children. He got animals. Then he started to lift it up. He was not conscious. And God put him down. Because you read in the last chapters of Job, somewhere at the back, you see the pride came to him. Amen. We can cry about the story of Job. Because he lost 10 children. He lost everything. When you read it, it's terrible. How God dealt with him. But it's not a matter of crying and sorrow for Job. It's to understand why what God was doing with him. It's not easy for me to stand here. Because 1 year ago, God removed my wife. We've been married for 35 years. When I retired from the weather department, I was looking forward to do the work of God. To move around. Fiji, the Pacific. Because I know all those islands. But my wife was sick. So I was asking the Lord to heal her so I can move her and she can accompany me sometime. Because my children are all grown up. I have 8 children, 5 are married. They are no longer small children. They can look after themselves. I was praying and praying and praying, Lord, please heal her. Otherwise, it's very hard for me to move. Then one day, she just passed away in front of me. I just was outside. She was alive. 5 minutes later, I came in. She was gone. I said, her name is Clara. Clara. She never responded. I'm a son of a doctor. When I look at her, I know she's gone. I did not cry because I was praying and praying. I was in the spirit. The power of God hold me. Because we've been together for 35 years. I've come to this truth for 29 years. This truth. You understand what I'm saying? Malachi 4. And she's been behind me. All the things and everything, the storms. Because when I came to this truth in God, I was testifying it a little bit to Brother Godswill Church. We can preach many things. Like there are many preachers here. We see you in the video. But most importantly, that God must say something to help you. Even my song, my testimony will help you. Some of you will help you. Because of the way God called me. Brother Nice got his testimony. Brother Gann or whoever got his testimony. Everyone here got your own testimony. When I was young, I did not want to. I was a Methodist, very chic, not just a traditional one. When I was only 16 years old, I was in the Pentecost. When I was in a boarding school. Speaking tongues is not new to me. Prophecy is not new to me. Because we all are young. We were 500 in a boarding school in the bush. We were speaking tongues. We break the cassava patch and all the small trees beside us. We broke the rule. We were praying poem in the morning. We break all the rules of the school. We were expelled. Because of the storm that came, that the latter rain has come. The Lord is coming soon. He's coming. That was 1976. But now it's 2019. The Lord, to speak, has never fulfilled the rapture. We are still waiting. He's coming soon. The Lord has already come in the spirit of His word. But He's going to come to take us very soon. That is what we are looking forward to. That's why Pastor Nye said, we have nothing to live for, yes, but to live for Christ. Because you are not taking anything to heaven. That's why when God called my wife, I have nothing to live for. The house doesn't mean anything to me. Because when your sister is there, she's the one that is at the home affairs. Looking after the house, decorating. When she disappears, I don't care anymore anything about else. Even the house, what is for? Because the one who's supposed to look after it is gone. This time, I told the Lord, I have nothing to live for. I've walked, I've been born, I've walked in the garment, I've lived life. I'm 58 years old now. I've been married for 35 years. I got 8 children, I got grandchildren. The only thing that matters to me now is to live for Christ and help the believers to come to the Lord. That's why I'm giving my life. Although I'm old, I'm getting unfit, but I'm still pressing on. Paul said, press on to the mark of the prize of the high calling. Paul said, I'm not saying I've attained, but I'm pressing on. Hallelujah. We must press on. We must fight. We must run. Because soon and very soon it's over. Hallelujah. So after that, there was a prophecy in the church to confirm my coming. So that's why I'm here. To come and return back to Fiji. The prophecy said, whatever I am here in the church in Nigeria can help you. In the smaller things, I'm going to speak. Because from Genesis to Revelation, you know. You've been taught by God in your pastor. But not everybody have the same understanding. That's why we must bear with one another. The Holy Spirit is patient with us so that we may all come to perfection, to the unity of the faith, to the knowledge of the Son of God, to the state of the perfect man. That's why we are helping each other. That's why we are praying for each other. That's why we are fighting for one another. Amen. So people today, they don't understand what is God. I remember the story of Africa. When they were taken to be slaves in America, inside the boat they were asking one question, why me, Lord? Why Lord me? Why me, Lord? We have come to the full understanding of what is the plan and the purpose of God. Amen. We are not asking the question why. Because we understand. Paul said we understand by the word of God. Amen. God gave us the word in the word is wisdom. It's a true wisdom. When you have the word of God, when you have wisdom, you have understanding. You understand the plan and the purpose of God. You understand why sickness in the world, why people are dying, because the people are asking, what kind of God is this? That's why many people don't worship God, don't believe in God. Because they are saying, how can be God called a loving God and there's no misery, there's misery, there's sickness, there's death in the world. That's why they became atheists. They don't believe God. They are saying that that statement, how can be your God be a loving God and people are dying? In Africa, we know there's a lot of social problems and political problems. There's a lot of military problems. Or Sierra Leone, or whatever you call it. You see people are killed. Where's the brother from Cameroon? Cameroon. Yeah, he told me the story on Sunday. They have to run to the jungle. They are killing them. But we are Christians. They don't understand. Even we are persecuted. Even we die too, Christians. Amen. The Bible said in Genesis 1 that in the beginning God created the heavens and the earth. So we understand that God created this planet Earth. If God has created this planet Earth, that means He got a plan and He got a purpose of what to do with this planet Earth. That's why He put Adam, the first man, in the garden. And we all know what happened. Because the plan and the purpose of God is not about anybody. It's the plan and the purpose of God. It's about God. It's not about Adam or Abraham or Jeremiah or Isaiah or whoever or even you. It's about God. Because He created everything. He even created you. You are creation. You are not creator. God created you. But we are thankful that God is love. The attribute of God is love. Amen. It's very hot in your country. Fiji is a beautiful island. If you have a lot of money, you can come. You have to cross the continent of Africa and Asia and the Pacific Ocean, the biggest ocean in the world, to come to my paradise. Hallelujah. I believe if you come back, you'll never come back to Pastor Nice. Amen. We are not here to get angry. When I preach, I always make the people laugh. Because God is a God of humor. He's not a devil for us to be afraid of. He's our friend. A friend indeed. He wants you to smile. If you don't smile, you better go back home. Maybe you have never eaten your dinner. In church, they will smile. Because you don't come here together, you come here to rejoice. You are sitting there not rejoicing. You never prayed when you come. You're not supposed to be here. Because you are not in the spirit to rejoice in God. Don't only rejoice when you are singing. I know you love singing in Africa. We Fiji too, we love singing. But our singing is melodic, like the waves. Because He lives, I can face tomorrow. Because sometimes, I told them, a little bit faster, otherwise you will all sleep. When I was in Melbourne one time for 7 months to train in weather, I was in the message church in 1995. So when we sing, they use the do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. We in Fiji don't know do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. You teach us, are you going to teach us until 20 years is over? Until Jesus will come. Hallelujah. We sing like that. So when our voice is going up, about 7 believers from Fiji in Melbourne Church, when our voice goes up, they go down. I said, it doesn't matter. We don't care. Because you don't sing to sound beautiful to your somebody sitting beside you. You sing from your heart to God. Otherwise you are a hypocrite. Don't come here and this is not an entertainment. You come here to worship from your heart, in spirit and truth. Hallelujah. That's why I told Brother Godsfield Church, how come when you are singing, you are shouting? But when God speaks, you are keeping quiet. Huh? God told Job, where were you when I was laying the foundation of the world? When the morning stars sang together and the sons of God shouted for joy because God was speaking. They shouted. When God speaks, you have to shout. Don't bring your life outside here. I know we are varieties of people. But when the word of God comes, the joy of the Lord is in your heart. You're going to rejoice. Because the word of God is life, is joy, is power, is spirit. Amen. So we understand that God created everything for his own purpose. We are here to fulfill the purpose of God and the plan of God. We have seen this world has come down for years. From the time of Adam even to today. We have seen the evolution. Even from the Bible point of view. What God was doing. From Adam, the flood, Abraham came. The prophets came until the law came in Moses, until Jesus came. It's 2,000 years now we have come through the church ages. Everybody here understand and know. But we are living today. The last minute. Brother Peter said, Brother Tui, it's not last hour. It's not last days. It's at the last second. Because we see what is happening around the world. We see what is happening in the Middle East. We see what is happening with Israel. It's at a time clock. When you don't want to know the time, you look at your watch or mobile. But when you want to know the prophetic time, you look at Israel. Hallelujah! I watch Israel every day as a preacher. Because I have to stand here and tell the congregation what is going on. Amen. Because you are the watchman. You are telling the people what is happening on the ground. You are standing at a very high level, anointed by God. You must know what is happening on the ground. Because like the theme of the convention, the storm is coming. That was the theme. Amen. Yeah, the storm is already here. The storm has been blowing forever. But it's getting stronger and stronger. The storm is going to come into the truth, to the message of the hour. And we see what has happened. I hope some of you know the message of the hour. Some of you just come now. But some of you have come, through that Malachi 4. Because of Brother Branham. In Fiji, the spirit is powerful. Can I have some water, brother, please? I'm a very big person. I sweat very fast and I drink water. Amen. Yes. We know what is Malachi 4. When I came to the truth in Fiji in 1991, I told you already, I have decided not to worship God. Why? Because I saw nothing in people who go to church. When I was still at the university to study to be a doctor, to follow my father, which never eventuated, I already decided not to worship God. Why? Because what I see in people that are going to church. They go to church on Sunday, they sing like angels. From Monday to Saturday, they live like devils. You don't have to be told by somebody to see what is wrong. Only if you want to be blind. When you look at the situation on the ground in the world, you see what is wrong. Africa is at a culprit too. When you talk about religion, you go from the north to the south, you see the biggest number of churches in this country. The biggest number of prophets, so-called, in this country. You know them. They are right here in Nigeria. Because I study the world every time. I look around. Because we must really know what is really happening, not only in Israel, around. Because it's all connected together, the prophecy. I told the believers in Fiji, amongst this confusion in Africa, God still prevailed the truth. That's why you are sitting here. Because I know you Africans are very religious. That's why I see every corner there is a church. Big one, small one, we don't know what's going on. And we see their pictures. Who want to see your picture? Huh? To look beautiful and handsome. Nobody wants to see you. We want to see Christ in your life. You are nothing. You are a sinner. Only the grace of God can save somebody. Fiji too is very religious. So when I came to the message of the hour, God called me very powerfully. He never used any preacher to come and tell me this truth. Because God knows I will never listen. So I walked in darkness. I got married. Nobody worship God. No prayer. No Bible. Nobody going to church. My wife or children. Sunday to speak, they will be sleeping without food. Because I will use all the money. God knows He cannot listen to anybody. Because He has decided already not to worship, not to come. So God has to use a brother in the message of the hour. We work together, Brother Job, Brother Nice. Brother Job. Brother Job is a faithful brother in Fiji. He came first to this truth. Every night when we are doing shift in the weather office, I see him reading a small book. So one night we went for tea. I asked him, brother, because I see him is a humble, good manner. This was 1990, 91. So I asked him, brother, you go to church? Yes. You go, because I know he comes from Assembly of God background. So you go to the Assembly of God? He said, no. Why? Then where you go? Then he started to, Brother Tui. No, that time he never called me Brother Tui because I was a sinner. He called me Mr. Twinraki. You know what is Twinraki? My name is Tui, means king. Twinraki, Raki means weather. So I'm a small king weather, below the big king. So I was at the right place at the right time to be a forecaster of weather. So he told me, I'm staying with a truth God sent. If you read Malachi, I said, what? I've come away from God for 10 years. I don't even know. I was not even aware that Malachi is a book in the Bible. I forgot. Because I was playing rugby. You know what is a rugby? I love rugby. I want to be the Superboy or the Superman. But God broke all my bones playing rugby. From the head, the ribs, the leg, the eyes. My wife told me, God has to break your backbone. And you are dead, so I can get your money. I said, you'll die first. So sister, don't tell your husband to die first. So you can get the superannuation. I told my wife, never mind a sinner, I will never die first. But I never meant it. But it was a prophecy. I'm alive still today. I was supposed to die by many accidents. Brother Nice, I see him is a good driver. But if you sit with me and I drive, when I was still in the world, you will have a heart attack. Because I'll go to the side where the oncoming vehicle is coming. And I'll tell him, driver, move. Otherwise we both die and go to hell. Because I already decided to go to hell. Hallelujah. Yes. So they call me crazy, madman. Huh? Now I'm good. People said before, 29 years ago, he was crazy. Because when the devil is in your life, you are crazy. You are nothing. You are only good people now, citizen of Nigeria, because of the Lord Jesus Christ. Otherwise, you'll worship, I watch Africa. I see many people go to the priest. When the sister don't have children, they go to the priest. Priest, pray for me, and give some money, give some yam and cassava, whatever. Because witchcraft is abounding here, in this country, in Africa. I know, I watch everything, from South Africa to up there, to even your country. No, it's not to undermine anything. It's to know what is happening. We cannot be not familiar or know what is happening around. Because somehow, somewhere, it will affect you. From the political level, from the national level, from the religious spirits in the world. We see what happened to the sister. That's not new for me to watch it. I watch many of these things in the internet. I told Brother Nisa, I heard the word ring. That ring, I know. You are married to a devil. Yeah, because people are religious. And the devil will want you to be religious. And carry your Bible to church. That is the devil is satisfied. But God hates a religious spirit. Jesus hates it. That's why he rebuked the Pharisee, because they are religious. When you're religious, you are God's enemy. You must be spiritual to understand what is the truth and what is not the truth. Only the Spirit of God can do that to you. Otherwise, you'll come to church and don't even know what you believe, like the woman at the well. I hope you are spiritual, not religious. Because the Spirit is the message of the hour. That's why they are worshiping Brother Branham, with due respect to the man of God who God called and vindicate. We are not here to worship men. We are here to worship God. John wanted to worship the angel. He was told, don't worship me, worship God. So the religious spirit was very powerful in Fiji, in the message of the hour. And the spirit, we must be careful, because sometimes we are not conscious that we are in church, we are religious and not spiritual. So we must pray to the Lord that God give us the spirit of understanding, knowledge, and the revelation. Because without the revelation, you are dead. The lifeline that as God has given us is the divine revelation from God to you. That's what Jesus told Peter in Matthew chapter 16. On this rock I will build my church, and the gates of hell cannot prevail. Hallelujah! Cannot prevail. If you are connected to God by revelation, God revealed himself to you. Always God will reveal himself to you in the Word of God. So, God, there's a prophecy fulfilled in Malachi. Oh. Then I went home and looked at Malachi. And then I remember, there's a prophet called Malachi, the last prophet to Israel. Then the next day, we did an evening shift. I saw him reading the book, the message book, the sermon of Brother Branham. I asked him, brother, can I read that book? What you reading? Oh, this is a sermon. Can I read it? When I took that book and opened the first page, I just read the first statement. God sent the fire to my heart. Fire was kindled inside my heart. From that day, 91, September to today, that fire is still there. Because you cannot quench the fire of God. God doesn't call you by chance. Your name is already in the book of life. When God will call, you'll come. You'll be justified and you'll be glorified. You'll go to the end. Is that the truth? I've been going in this truth for 29 years. I never went back to the world. I never went back to denomination. When God called me that way, it was so powerful, the fire. The whole world closed before me. My ears were deaf to the whole world. The only thing I can see is Christ. The people notice something has gone wrong with him. That's how powerful when God comes to your life and take over. You'll become a new creation. Although you're going to grow. But we are different in how God will call. Some will come gradually. Some will come fast. It depends on what is your position in the body of Christ. Amen. Because we must make sure that we are in God. That God has called. And we have responded to the call of God. When that happened, my father, my mother, my 8 brothers and sisters, they rejected me. It's never happened. But God allows it. Because God wants me to walk alone with him. You cannot walk with your father and your villager and whatever when you walk with God. God called Abraham, come out of your country, of your kindred, of your family. Walk with me. The call of God is total separation. Then only then you can walk with God. God must cut the flesh. My father never wanted to see me anymore. My mother, my brothers and sisters, for 1 year, they don't want to see my face. They said he's a believing a prophet. He's a cult. My life nearly surrender. Nobody's coming home. I said, nobody's coming home or what? It doesn't matter. We are going forward. It's a life or death, we are moving. When God comes to you, it's not a sensation or feeling. It's that the power of God will come to your heart. And people will know, and you will know, that God has come and enter your life. Because he's going to show the power, the reality. He's going to show in your life. You're going to go through the storms and everything. The Methodists are rejected. The Pentecost rejected. Nobody entered my house. But God did it. Because I must be cut off. For me to walk alone with God, to be strong. Because of the message of the hour in Fiji was already gone. When I sit in church, I see a very powerful religious spirit operating. They never saw it. They thought it was a God operating. No. They come to the pulpit and they read the sermon. The prophet said, the prophet said. You're going to read and read, and you're going to go in the second bus to hell. Second or first or 20 bus. You still are going to go in one of the bus. Huh? God will bring you through the confusion, but you will get it out. You will get out. He'll bring you through the storm, but you're going to get out. Because it is the preacher that has messed up this thing. So if you're a child of God, He's going to bring you in so God can use you to correct it. Otherwise, He'll pull you out. It's either one. I came in by the power of God. When I look at the church, it's upside down. Huh? Everything is upside down. From the pastor, the elders, the deacon, it's upside down. That's why God sent deceivers to the church. He sent an American preacher. They came and preached. They said, thus said the Lord, the rapture has already taken place. We are in the millennium. Hallelujah! Hallelujah! We are now in the Son of David, not Son of God. Hallelujah! Hallelujah! When you don't have the Holy Spirit, that's the outcome. You can be easily deceived. I was not even a deacon, a preacher, or pastor, an elder. I was only 2 years old. I came in and I watched this American preacher. And the Spirit in me is saying he's wrong. He's a lie. So after church, everybody was rejoicing. Hallelujah! Hallelujah! Because he has said, no more preacher, no more pastor. Every Sunday come together and pray. Somebody got a revelation from God, whether it's a sister or whoever, stand up and preach. That's from the bottomless pit. That is not from the Bible. But the people believe it. So after the preaching, I moved closer to the American preacher. This was 1993. Mister, I want to ask you a few questions. You are saying we are already in the millennium. The rapture has taken place. I cannot believe it. Because it's not scriptural. I know he was so nervous because somebody has come before him to ask. Because this is not from God, this preacher. Because Americans think that Brother Branham came there, they know everything. They don't know anything. Brother Nice told them that the Jeffersonville, the Branham Tabernacle is a museum. They want to kill him. They want to punch him. Yeah, God called Brother Branham. He never called those people there. Or the two sons, he never called. With due respect to them. We respect people. But God doesn't respect you when you are out of God. God respects himself. Who are you to deceive the people? Who are you to lie? God never called you. Sit down. God has never called you. Because you're going to be answerable to the life of those people. In the day of judgment. Yes. I don't want to be a preacher. God called me to stand here and preach the word of God. So, they were deceived. He could not answer me. I said, say it from even what the messenger, the prophet said. What you are saying, say to me. He said, go and read this book. What book? 70 Weeks of Daniel. You have it? No, I'll find it. Then I came to the Lord and prayed. Because the church was deceived in Fiji. Lord, you brought me to this truth. I did not want to come and save you. I told my wife, you want to save God, you go. I will be a sinner and die and go to hell. That's my testimony. I don't know who speaks like that here. Because why? Because I don't see anything in Christianity. Why? Because we are living together every day. They are lying. They are cheating. They are committing adultery. But Sunday they speak in tongue. We are not blind. You are not blind. Your life will speak louder than your words. Hallelujah. You can say so many things. Your life will speak louder than what you are saying. I came home and tell the Lord, I don't want to believe anything. Because Lord, you are not a God of confusion. You call me to this truth powerfully. That's why God sent only one book to call me. Because he does not need any preacher to come and preach to me. He just used a message book to call me. That was enough. Because all these people are nothing. All these people are conceived, are deceived already. Only looking for money. Yes. It's all wrong. What was happening? They're only talking about the prophet. They don't even know what the prophet was talking about. They are like parrots. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Yes, the parrots will say good morning every time. Then God sent me to Japan to study for 4 months. And God led me to that ministry of Brother Gen in 2000. The Holy Ghost took me down to the 10-story building we were living in Tokyo City and showed me what he was preaching about. So when I was in Japan, I started preaching to the believers there. They are African believers, brothers, because they come there to study and work. They were listening to the tapes. I told them, the tapes will never take you to heaven. You need a life ministry. It's called the fivefold ministry that God has put up to lead you today, that you may come to perfection. It's the Bible. They believe it. They're from Congo and Kenya and from Nigeria or somebody else. Their leader. So when I went back to Fiji, I started preaching because God has showed me what was missing. The confusion in the message of the hour. And the Lord was putting into me, you go to the big church and preach to them. And tell these people the truth. Because I've allowed you to come to show it to you. Now is your turn. I know if I'm going to preach, I'm going to be thrown out. So the Lord was saying, you fear me or you fear people? Go and preach it. You know, like Samuel was afraid to go and anoint David. Because King Saul might heard it and kill him. So the Lord told him, just go tell them you are going to worship. It's not a lie. It's a detour. Our God is good. Because he knows sometimes you're afraid. He's going to do something. Because David must be anointed. Here you go. I'm going to worship. But he was going to pour the oil over the head of David. Because when I was in school, this story is very good, common to me because I played the drama of Samuel. I was the prophet Samuel, like brother Eli was Peter. Because I was a Christian when I was small, in the teenagers. But go. So they were building a big church, big, like a Nigeria churches. So the Lord pointed me to that building. You go and visit that building. At the same time, you're going to preach. Just go. Just tell the pastor, I want to come just to visit you, give you some money to help in the church building. So I went that way like Samuel. Then the pastor asked me, can you preach? I said, it's up to you. You're the boss. You never know, the bomb was coming. Don't be afraid of human being. Fear God and honor men. Hallelujah! You know, God's His wisdom. The way God is going to approach her, He knows they are Branhamite. They got a powerful spirit. So you must slowly somehow undo. I know if I'm not going to say the name of Brother Branham, they will jump. So I have to say it too, a little bit. If you don't have wisdom, you cannot penetrate the enemy. Because Paul said it. I go to the Jew, I'm like a Jew. I go to the weak, I'm a weaker. So the purpose is to win as many as to Christ. You must know how to approach in wisdom. Because otherwise, the whole purpose of you to go and get soul is defeated already before you start. Brother Nice, sir, I'm breaking your pulpit. I'll break pulpit around. Hallelujah. Because I'm going to break the pulpit in Juba. I'm going to tell them, when you come to church, you're not supposed to read. You're supposed to expound the revelation. So I go. First preaching, 1, 2. Second preaching, go. They started to, I see them looking up. They are hearing things they've never heard before. Then the second preaching was shorter. I broke the pulpit. I smashed it. I said, oh my. Then I pushed it up a little bit. The nail went down. The pastor never know I'm pushing it. Hallelujah, hallelujah. Then the third preaching end, I was planning pipe attack. I will undo their Branhamism. The third one was so powerful, they all surrender. Even the pastor, even the elders, they said, our eyes is open. God is sending you not to visit the church building. He's sending you to visit church that is sitting here. The big pastor declare. Because God is true. Huh? When He sends you, He's going to vindicate you. Everybody was excited. Oh my, something is happening here. This word of God is beautiful. Even sister went home and cried. They've never heard it before, what they were hearing. That's why I said, don't let the word of God be common. Because you've been hearing it. You are fortunate you have heard it. But don't let it become common. Because of the word of God, when God will send it, there is a purpose of sending that word. Yes. But the devil was watching. Lucifer, Satan, sorry. Then he came and entered all these priests and high priests. And suddenly, with all the good feedback, the good result, they took me and threw me outside. I said, hallelujah. I am washing your blood from my hands. Today, they are still out there. They are still fighting. I said, you will never win. the truth will always win. You cannot win because God is truth. So God had to bring people. I was working alone. The truth costs many things in your life. But the truth is life. Hallelujah. And today, God is victorious. The people are coming. The people are just coming. And he said, we now see the truth. Because there is no truth. It's just a repeating or repetition. Even when I brought a brother again in 2004, they want to stop him. I said, you'll never win. My God will win. He will come and preach to this country. You can never stop that ministry. Because God has connected me to him. That's why God has connected me to your pastor. Because God will never send a wicked person to a righteous person. Or a righteous person to a wicked. The righteous person will be sent to a righteous person. It's the same spirit. We'll be connected because it's one spirit. That's why we are connected here. Amen. It's not I'm picking and choosing. It's God that has connected us together because we have the same spirit. Never mind we have different language or different color or different background. It doesn't matter. The Spirit of God will make us one. Whether we are Jew or Gentile or free or born or Nigeria or Fijian, we are all made to drink from one Spirit. We are all made to be baptized in one body and by one Spirit. That's why we are one. We are neither Nigeria or Fijian. Hallelujah. The Lord is very good. I love the Lord. Because for these 29 years, He's been faithful to me. Although sometimes we fail. But it doesn't stop or prevent the love of God. The Bible said in the book of Romans chapter 8, Paul said, whatsoever separate us from the love of God in Christ? Death, sword, peril, angel, things seen or not seen, nothing. Nothing! Nothing, brother, sister, will ever separate us from the love of God. Job said, even if he slay me, I will continue to trust him. I will continue to love him. I will continue to worship him. God slay his 10 children, slay the animals. Job said, if he slay me, I still love him. Because he's the creator. He creates you. Brother Branham said, we must be the most happiest person in the world that the grace of God has come to you. Hallelujah! Because grace is grace. There's nothing more or less than grace. It's unmerited favor to you. You do or merit nothing to get that favor from God. That's why you should appreciate it and embrace it with all your life. Amen. Hallelujah. In Jeremiah chapter 18, verse 1 to 6, God told Jeremiah, because Israel was so disobedient, you go to the potter's house and look what he is doing. After that, then you come and preach. Say, when you see the potter? Spinning, the clay, molding, breaking. Yeah, go and preach to Israel. Go and preach to Judah. Tell them, I am the potter. You are the clay. That's what Paul said in Romans chapter 9. Nobody can say why you have created me this way. Because the potter is still the potter. Is God. He creates how he creates and designs things. For his own good pleasure. Not according to your purpose. That's why you should not complain. Whatever you are in God is whatever you are. You cannot be something more than less than what God has designed you or ordained you to be. If you are not a pastor, don't want to become a pastor. You are supposed to sit there like David said. I was happy when they said unto me, let us go to the house of the Lord. Because in the house of the Lord, in the presence of God is fullness of joy. But when I go to the house of the Lord, I just want to be the doormat. You know the doormat? You step on it. That's what David wants to be. Humble yourself before the mighty hand of God. In the right time, due season, He will lift you up. Brothers and sisters, the Lord is coming soon. We must humble ourselves. We must focus. We must be committed, healed, and submitted to the Spirit. Because it's very important. You must concentrate. Don't be distracted by the things of the world, because it's of the devil. The first book of John, chapter 2, John said, all these things are not of the Father. The lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes is not of the Father. The world will disappear with the world. But those who do the will of God will abide forever. The will of God is the word of God. Amen. Romans chapter 8 verse 28. All things work together for those who love the Lord. Only for those who love the Lord. When they were coming from Egypt to go to the promised land, God provided everything. The water, the manna. They never changed of clothes for 40 years. But they complain and murmur all the time. They complain and murmur all the time. Until they provoke God, and God destroy everyone. Only Joshua and Caleb was left. Amen. I told Brother Godswill last night, bear with me if some Fijian words will come out. Because in Fiji, I preach in English and Fijian. In Fiji, I'm the only preacher that can preach in English. Because our mother tongue is Fijian. Although we learn English in school. But when we talk, we speak in Fijian. You are good because you speak in English. I see you speaking in English. Because you are under the British Empire. We were under the British Empire too. But for us to speak English, we can be very good in English. But to preach or to speak is very hard. Because people are not used to it. But God wants me to preach in English. It's not like Apostle John Mark. He just came. It's a different way God is going to operate. So what God did, He sent me to Australia in 1995. Then I was sitting in the church as a deacon. Then the pastor from Kenya, Brother Kwesi, then one day he called me. Can you take up the meeting on Sunday evening? I said, what? I'm going to preach to the white people. This is their language. What are they going to say to me? But when I was about to say no, the Lord came and said, remember Moses. He told the Lord, I cannot speak. I'm not eloquent. I don't have a message. God was so angry, He wanted to kick him around. God told him, who created the deaf? Who created the dumb? It's me, the Lord. But I thank the Lord I can preach in English. It's very hard to preach in English as a Fijian preacher. They can read the books of Brother Branham, they cannot preach it in English. If I cannot do that, I will never be preaching to you. But God has made me to preach in English. Even in Japan, I was preaching in English. Even in Fiji, I can preach in English now. Both Fiji and English. Because most of my congregation, they don't understand English properly. They all go to school, the old people. But I must try to clarify what the English word is saying. Because the Fijian word is so weak. It's not defined. Because many are borrowed words. Understand me? In Fiji, if you see a male cow, you call it the what? Huh? Brother Gideon, what do you say? Oh, I thought you were saying something else. Bull. The male, the female? Yeah. The general name is cattle, yeah? You know, eh? Because you have a lot of cows to take it to your father's wife. Oh, cow. Oh, everything cow. But in Fiji, we mix it together. Every cattle, we call it the bull macau. Bull cow. There's a new vocabulary. New English. Bull cow. Bull cow. Whether it's male or female, bull cow. But the right word is bull macau. Hallelujah. Amen. You know, brothers and sisters, the Lord is good. I thank God the time is coming soon for this thing to be over. Because me, Brother Nye, some of you, we have labored a lot. The mark of the gospel is in our body. I was working for so many years, but I was preaching too. I preach here, I do all these things. And I have a family. It's not easy to do that. But the power of God can make you to do it. To continue to fight. Because in Fiji, there are not many preachers like here. I'm telling Brother Nice, you got too many preachers. Indirectly, I'm saying something to him. To make them to migrate. Hallelujah. Migrate. Do you understand me? Yeah, because in Fiji, the situation is different. All the people who are supposed to be inside to preach, they are in the message of the hour. They are good people. There are many people, many brothers. But they decided to follow their leader. I was just wishing they come to the truth so they can help in the work of God. I have a lot of sisters in the church than the brothers. I'm not saying it to you to think about it. Because Brother Nice told me there's not enough sisters here. I said, you have to give me 20 cows. Hallelujah. I believe one of you is migrating soon from here. You have to come through the pastor, the commander first. Before you go to the father. Hallelujah. Yeah, we are a family of God. We are here to fellowship. We are here to rejoice. We are here to understand something. We are here to learn. Although they are watching from outside, it's good for them to watch. So they may learn something too. Because we are the true witness of the truth. I'm a true witness, I can say boldly. Brother Nice is a true witness. Some of you can say, I don't know much of you so well now, but I'm starting to know your names. So I already told you, if you have a lot of money, come to Fiji. Huh? But you have to ask your commander first. Hallelujah. Amen. Because by next week, I'm not here. So I want to enjoy this fellowship. Before I go back, I don't know whether I'm going to come back or no. Only God knows. People are saying, hey, you are prophesying, brother. People are saying, come back, brother, to you. God willing, I'll come back. But you must repair your road first. Hallelujah. Glory be to God. Amen and amen. You know, I was sitting there, I was very emotional. Because I'm a father and a mother to my children. They always talk to me every day. My grandchildren talks to me. When you are sleeping, I'm awake. Yeah? Because now it's 8:28. They're already awake. When I'm sitting there, I'm going to see they are already texting me. WhatsApps to me. Because when you are standing for God, when you are really genuine or sincere, the people will love you. Because they don't see any hypocrisy in your life. They see you love the Lord and you stand for what you believe. That thing will make your church member loves you. It's not that you are the Lord, because you are the instrument. You are the vessel because of your sincerity and faithfulness in God. That's why they can come. God has to call Abraham, only one man. Because he saw something in the heart of Abraham. It's not because Abraham is a landowner or something from Mesopotamia. He saw something in his heart that he can obey and love the Lord God Almighty. When God is going to see your heart, he will never see the outside. God told Samuel, God, I'm God. I don't look at the physical appearance. I look at the heart. When you speak, your heart will tell who is you. Because your heart is what is you are speaking from. It's where God dwells, and where you speak with fire, and speak with a joy, and speak with passion. It's not an imagination worshiping God. It's a reality. There's a life in you. It's the token life. It's the life of the Spirit of the Word of God. There is a burning in your heart. Amen. You know, God called the wife to a brother Pierre. He called the wife of Brother Branham Sister Hope. It's not easy. When God called his sister, the devil started to talk to his mind. This is the God you worship. You said a God of love, God of mercy, but your wife is dead. Your daughter is dead, and your son is going to die. This is a God you worship. This is a God you are worshiping. You know, Brother Bam was in a greater situation where he was so much emotional because when you are in God, the next thing after salvation is your wife and your family. They are very precious to you. That's what I have gone through for 28 years in the Lord. They are the next thing to me because they are supporting me. They've been the backbone when I fight the fight with the devil, even the message people. My wife was the next at the back. But when God removed him, I have to walk. I have to move. That's why I'm here. If God never called her, Brother Nice will never come. I will never be here tonight. Because the story will be different. I was at the doctor to her every day. She never wanted to go to hospital. But God knows everything. She must go because other people must come. She must take the lead to heaven. I must have move on because the work of God must be done. Time is very short. One day when Brother Branham was lying down on his bed with Sister Mida, there was a voice talking to him. Keep on pressing on. Keep on fighting. Then the voice told him, do you want to see that side of the curtain? Do you want to see? He said, Lord, it's good for me to see. It's good for me to see it. So God put him the other side in a vision. And he saw his wife. He saw his daughter. He saw his converts. There's only one thing they were telling him. They told him to come back and keep on preaching, keep on pressing, keep on fighting. Because they are there because of his preaching. When you are sitting here, brother and sister, don't look at the physical environment. You look beyond the curtain. You try to look to that paradise where they are. Brother Branham said, I don't want to come back. Because when I was there, even my body changed. Even what the joy I felt there was perfect joy. Was a perfect joy. I don't want to come back. Brother and sister, Brother Nice was preaching one sermon, Hebrews chapter 12, look unto Jesus, the author and the finisher of our faith. Since we have seen all these witnesses encompassing us, let us put aside all the weight that easily beset us, and the sin, and run the race with the patience, with the endurance, with the perseverance. Paul said in 2 Timothy chapter 4, verse 1, go right down. He wrote to Timothy when he was about to die in the prison in Rome. He said, Timothy, I have fight the good fight. I have run the course. I have kept the faith. The only thing the devil wants to take it out from you is your faith. To destroy. We must keep the faith. Jesus said, if I come back, will I find faith on this earth? Luke chapter 18, part B of verse 8. He will find it. Because we have it. We have the genuine faith. We have the true faith. The revelation of God. The revelation of Jesus Christ. We have it. That's why we cannot surrender. That's why we cannot go back. That's why we are moving forward all the time. From faith to faith. From glory to glory. Until we are fully furnished with Christ. We are fighting the fight that God has already fought. We have already the victory. Hallelujah. Think about it. This life is not easy to speak. There's a lot of affliction, a lot of tribulation. Poverty will come. But don't look at these things. You look beyond to where the saints are waiting. It's a perfect joy. But they are telling us to continue to fight. Continue to fight and press. Because some other believers are still out there. We must bring them in. I'm going back very soon, next week. When I'm going back, I'm going to Australia. I baptized an Aborigines. I preached in Australia for 7 months, in 1995. What I saw there is also the confusion in the message of the hour. In Melbourne and Brisbane, I went to these two places. In Melbourne, they don't even understand and even know the fivefold ministry. They ask me, brother, what is fivefold ministry? But they're reading the books of Brother Brad. They're reading the Bible. So I asked God. I spent 6 months. I spent 2 weeks in Brisbane. I spent 2 weeks in Townsville to study the difference of meteorology or climate pattern in Australia, because it's a big country. I have to come from the south weather to the middle weather to the tropical weather in Townsville. I said, Lord, please speak to these people. This is my last preaching on Sunday. The preacher is from Ghana. He's the scientist of this red brick. He came from Kenya, or Ghana, sorry. Can you just speak to them? Because they are confused. They don't even know what they're doing. They are reading the message book too. So God, I was fasting for 1 week and I preached so powerfully in the spirit, they could not even sit down when I was preaching that Sunday. Because they saw the light. They finally understood what is the fivefold ministry. I said that there is a leadership here that God has ordained. It's the fivefold ministry. God has ordained that ministry to lead, to be the leadership in the church, in the Word of God. Because if you don't have the leadership, you'll do whatever you want to do. Like in the days of the judges. In chapter 17, chapter 21, the Bible said there was no king in Israel. They were doing everything that was right in their own eyes. Today God has given us the Bible ministry to lead us. The Joshua ministry, the Holy Ghost. That we may be perfected. Amen. And we are thankful for God for that ministry. That is leading the eagle. It's the dove leading the eagle. It's the Holy Spirit leading the eagle. Yes. Without that, I will do everything what we want to do. Without the leadership, you will do whatever you want to do. You'll form church like we see outside. You'll have your own poster outside too. Because people are religious. And the devil wants you to be religious. Amen. That's why we are thankful to God. When I went to Brisbane, it's a big church. They bought it. And on Sunday, they preach, they sing, they testify, they play the piano. Beautiful. When it comes to the preaching, they press the button. That time we have the cassette, not the CD. Today the technology is totally improved. We have the radio and the cassette. They played. And we are hearing Brother Branham. And they give us the book and the tape to take home. When he's preaching, you have to read it. Amen. Amen. If the unbeliever will come, the denomination, they think that we are the Catholic too. They do this and whatever they do. But I was talking to the pastor on Saturday when I arrived from Melbourne to Brisbane. I told him my testimony. He said, Brother, your testimony is very good. I said, it's very good because it's of the Lord. If the Lord calls you, it's very good, your testimony. It's not something you make it up. Because God is going to prove it, that God has called you. Whether you are the ministry, whether you are the body of Christ, God is going to prove it. You can say something tomorrow before the preaching of the tape. I said, no problem. I can speak testimony. So I stood up. We have a good singing and piano, very beautiful voice. We'll ask Brother Twinraki to come and give a testimony. So I went up and I give my testimony. I'm going to finish very soon. Because next week I'm not here. Oh, amen. Because I asked Brother Godswill last night, it was only nearly 8. Brother Godswill, how many more times? 30 minutes. I said, I will never come back to Nigeria. You are giving me only 30 minutes, Brother Godswill. It's okay, Brother Godswill. You're the pastor. Because when I come to church, we come. I know you live very far, but we love to fellowship. Amen. I know you stay here until morning when you fast. You cannot excuse to me. I want you to. Yeah? Sometimes I just play it and watch you when I'm free. Amen. So I stood up and gave my testimony. Not just a testimony like I'm even doing now, preaching and testifying. So after that, he played the tape, and Brother Branham preached. I was listening to, I said, what? Because of what he was saying and the scripture he was using, is the same thing I was doing. When it was over, he stood up, the preacher. He said, the Holy Ghost is something. Whatever Brother Tui said, Brother Branham said. It's not I'm a quota. No, God was trying to tell them God is visiting you. You must throw away the tape. Not the tape, the radio. How come are you a pastor? He's a pastor. And you cannot speak in church. You cannot even, who's preaching at home? Him. He can minister the word of God to some level or extent of how God has ordained him. God never ordained terminology. He ordained man. He called man to preach the gospel. Hallelujah. Yeah, I was surprised too. He was surprised. The church was surprised. Yeah, God is good. God knows everything. So he came to me and told me, Brother Tui, can you speak again in the evening service? I said, when I come to church, then you ask me again. If I say yes, I will stand up. If no, I will never stand up. So when I was getting ready for the evening service, I'm staying in the church flat. Because at that evening, we will baptize one believer. The pool, you have to remove the pulpit. It's raised up. It's more raised up than this one. It's a pool already sitting. The pulpit is sitting on top of the pool. You remove it and fill it up. And we baptize this boy from Vanuatu. We were coming together from the course in Melbourne. I said the word of God to him, and he believed it. We were together 6 months in Melbourne. He never believed anything. But when we came here to the flat, he asked me, can I stay in the flat of the church? I said, no problem. I said to him, from Saturday to Sunday morning, he said, I want to be baptized. He said, I'll tell the pastor. God was vindicating, God was visiting the church to tell them that is not correct what you're doing. It's a life ministry. God has ordained. So the Lord put it into me to preach what I preach in Melbourne. The last preaching. That rebuked the church in Melbourne, the error. So he came here, I'm going to stand up. But he want me to testify. But I said that today, your law will be broken. I will preach. I throw away your law. Because your law is not from God. There's a preacher sitting here. He must preach. Your law will never work today. Hallelujah. I stood up and opened the Bible. They thought I'm going to testify. I'm going to preach. To tell them, you better remove this radio. You can hear it at home. Hallelujah. Then the word started to come. They were looking at me. They could not say anything. I said, you're going to watch me, I'm going to watch you. God doesn't want your idea. God doesn't want your theology or philosophy. It's what is in the Bible that matters here. It's the truth. It's what is the plan and the purpose of God. It's how God has designed it. Hallelujah. They could not talk. They shook my hands. I said, the job is done. So I went to Townsville. I came back. They never allowed me to preach anymore. So I went to Japan in 2000 after 5 years. I flew through Brisbane to transit to Fiji. I asked the Lord, you want me to go back to the church? No. Stay right in the city and board your plane and go to Fiji. When God visits you, let God visit. Because otherwise he's going to bypass and go. Jesus visited his own people for 3.5 years. The last week, he was coming down crying. Jerusalem, Jerusalem. How many times I want to hover you like a mother chicken over the mother hen over the small chicken. But you will never or not. You never know the day of your visitation. You never know what concerns your peace, your life. Amen. They never realized God was visiting. But I'm going back to Australia. From 1995, 2000, I'm going back. The first mission is to go back to Australia when I go back. I'm going to preach to the Aborigines. Maybe the Aborigines will take this gospel in Australia, where Brother Colode, is living there, but he's to the west. To the east is the populated area where the people are living. I heard your prayer about Brother Colade, that he must meet with me and do the work in the Pacific. That's true. There are many islands there. Tonga, Samoa, Tuvalu, Cook Islands, Nauru, Niue. It's plenty. It's floating in the Pacific Islands, including Australia, New Zealand, and Papua New Guinea. So there's work still be done. You don't pack up now and wait. Until when Jesus comes, then you tools down and go. We still have work to do. To bring in the 100 sheep. That's why it's not easy. So, as I've said, we live in the world as believers. Not only spiritually, physically we are affected. We are affected from all angles, like Paul said. Even Paul said, I was a weeper. I was came down from a rope from Damascus to run away. I go through so many things. In this life, it will never stop even death to come to you as a believer. Even sickness, even injuries will come. It doesn't mean that you are not a Christian. Jesus died. Paul was killed. Peter was killed. James was killed. We know they became martyrs. But they were apostles. They were true servants of God. But they died. Because the will of God must happen. Not what we want to do or our will. That's why it's not, to be a Christian is a lot of affliction. As a people of God, we hide it, like nothing is happening. But inside we are afflicted. Many are the affliction of the righteous. Yes. Because we look around the world, it's all sinful. You cannot see any good thing to speak. It's more sin. It's becoming more sinful, the world. But the Bible said when sin will increase, the grace of God will also abound. It's only the grace of God. God told Paul, my grace is enough for you. It's sufficient. It's grace that is sufficient to take us through to the end. Because time is running out fast. We must stand up. We must rise up and move and press and fight and believe. We're in the last minute or second of the salvation of God. May God help us tonight as we come together to the Lord. That God will may grant you grace to continue to move on and fight this good fight until Jesus will come. God bless you richly. Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we give you the glory, the praise tonight. We love you because you love us first. We have become what we are just because of the grace of God. There's nothing much to speak, Lord, because our heart is in joy, is a rejoicing, and in love with you tonight. We bless your name. We give you the glory, the honor. Tonight, as you continue to speak to us, quicken us, inspire us so we may continue to move on. Because we are looking forward to that hour when the final redemption will come for our body to be ready to come to that paradise. Thank you, Lord Jesus, tonight for all this fellowship and worship whereby we are gathered together here in your presence. In Jesus' mighty name we pray, and amen. And amen. God bless you.
Put your hands for the Lord Jesus. Better for Jesus. Amen. The Lord bless you richly. We thank the Lord for the life of our precious brother and pastor, Tweed Raki. Amen. In his message, he mentioned a wonderful brother, Brother Job. He said he saw his life. And you know, I think it was last week, I asked him of Brother Job. I can't forget Brother Job. Each time I'm preaching, there is some words he says in Fiji. He says, yes, Lord. Iyo Turanga. Am I correct? Iyo Turanga. Yes, Lord. He will shout. Very deep. Amen. And that brother is, you know, someone whose life God used to draw his attention like the fire burning in the bush. Amen. Some people will say, I was in a message before you, so you can't be my pastor. He's pastoring him. He's a minister. He goes preach there, comes back and submit himself to the calling of the Lord. Amen. A blessed brother. Very blessed brother. He plays the keyboard, the guitar. Very blessed brother. May the Lord bless Brother Job for allowing his light to shine. The truth about the faith is that our life must speak louder than what we say. May the Lord overcome hypocrisy in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen. Another thing that he did mention here, which is very, very touching. We all have past. He says, there must be a tongue in the flesh. Something the Lord will use to humble a person. I put it like this in my words: God will always be God and you will be man. Praise the Lord. May the Lord grant us grace to be wise and to win souls in the name of Jesus Christ. I'd like to sing this song. Amen. It was sent to me, I think, on the phone, and I played it in the car while I was with Brother Tui all today. El Elyon, God Most High, Jesus Christ, you are Elohi Israel. Israel, that's how you pronounce it. Israel. Brother Joseph, do you know it? El Elyon, God Most High, Jesus Christ, you are Elohim Israel. El Elyon, God Most High, Jesus Christ, you are Elohim Israel. You know, when I was playing the song, you know, we always attack. When we play, our position is attacking midfield. Amen. Somebody asked me, you cannot evangelize without causing problem. No, there's no other way. Because I must be on the offensive side. So I said, I wish that people will believe what they write and what they sing. Look at what is written there. The Jewish people will get angry with this. The core Jewish man will be angry. The church is also angry about this if you explain to them what it is. This song nails Trinity and slap the Jews for not opening their eyes. But I don't know who used to say that. Somebody used to say, I thank God for the Jews, for their being blind so that we can see. Elohim was in Christ, reconciling the world to himself. Let's sing the song. El Elyon, El Elyon, God Most High, Jesus Christ, you are Elohim Israel. El Elyon, El Elyon, God Most High, Jesus Christ, you are Elohim Israel. Elohim Israel. Most High, Jesus Christ, you are Elohim Israel. So Bro Tui said, if you sing like that, you will sleep. So let's sing it fast, the way it was sung originally. El Elyon, God Most High, yes, Lord. Jesus Christ, I say, you are Elohim Israel. El Elyon, El
Jesus Christ, you are Elohim Israel.
Now sing this one. El Elyon, God Most High, sing Jesus Christ, the Holy One of Israel. Hallelujah, we sing El Elyon, God Most High, Jesus Christ.
You're the Holy One of Israel.
Holy One of Israel.
God Most High, Jesus Christ.
You
are the Holy One of Israel.
Hallelujah. Let's rise.
Hallelujah. God Most High, Jesus Christ, you're the only one of Israel.
Amen. The Lord bless you richly. Tomorrow, Pastor Tui will be in Egbeda Church to preach. Amen. If you are close by, please come. I told you what the Fijian brethren did. They were moving from state to state. They filled the whole ship, aircraft. They filled everywhere, traveling for the gospel. It touched me. I traveled this far. I came by flight. By the time I reached there, the next day I saw people arriving. Amen. And here we are. On Sunday, you see everywhere will be filled up, and then no, it's not going to be good like that. The time is fast spent. The Lord bless you. Amen. Talk to your neighbors. I sat down there, and while he was ministering, I got 2 messages for the tracks that I'm writing. 2 messages. 2 important, not messages, 2 important titles. God hates religion. And we need it as a track. So I'm telling this on the scriptures, put something together. God hates religion. Amen. So, the Lord bless you. Let's bring our offerings as we close. El Elyon, God Most High, oh, Jesus Christ, you are Elohim Israel. El Elyon, El Elyon, God Most High, Jesus Christ, you are Elohim Israel. Elohim Israel, Elyon, God Most High, Jesus Christ, you are Elohim Israel. Elyon, God Most High, Jesus Christ, you are Elohim Israel. Elohim Israel, God Most High, Jesus Christ, you are Elohim Israel. God Most High, Jesus Christ, you are Elohim Israel. Jesus Christ, you are Elohim Israel. Jesus Christ, you are Elohim Israel. Israel.
Jesus Christ.
Lord.
You are Elohim Israel.
Israel.
Jesus Christ. You are Elohim Israel.
Hallelujah. Let's be in church on Sunday early. Amen. We have a new Sunday school teacher that will be taking us on Sunday. When you come, you will know him. Huh? You say? Oh, yes. I thought you were mentioning somebody's name. I said, don't be caught in the web. Praise the Lord. On Friday, we'll be here. That will be the last midweek service for Pastor Tui before Sunday. Amen. And we see how the Lord will lead us on Sunday. Praise the Lord. I know you have been trying. Keep trying to the end. Because Fiji is very far. We must get something out. Everything. Praise the Lord. Hallelujah. Amen. It's like he has started tonight to take off. The ones we was doing was landing from the camp. Now he's taking us with off. So we must allow him finish. The Lord bless you richly. Let's bow our heads. Thank you, Father. Bless our offerings and our tithings. And bless, Lord, the word that you have given to us in our hearts. Real encouragement to us. It has encouraged us, it has lifted our weak minds to be strong. We know that trials are around us, but your promise is that we are overcomers. Bless those that are here for the first time, O God of heaven. And bless those that are coming to the faith newly also. We thank you for the deliverance that you have given to us, O God. We pray as we go that you go ahead of us, with us and behind us. Make a sure word of testimony in our mouth and our lives. Bless the preacher. Virtues gone out of him. May you, Lord, replenish him, strengthen him for tomorrow, Thursday and Sunday, O God. And Lord, bless him, Lord, in this continent that he has come. Lord, may he, Lord, when you'll be returning, go with lots of blessings in the name of Jesus Christ. Thank you, Father. Glory be to your name. The grace of the Lord be with us till we meet again. Shalom to the bride in Jesus' name. The Lord bless you. There's early morning prayers tomorrow, Thursday. Amen. Early morning prayers tomorrow, Thursday. And I will come around with Pastor Tui also. That will be nice for him to be here. Praise the Lord. The Lord bless you.